Hello everyone and welcome to my ranking of the top 10 hardest bosses in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I still remember seeing the E3 trailer and getting absolutely hyped when you see Cloud from behind walking and focusing on the Buster Sword. I have a lot of love for this game, even for all of its flaws. From the first time booting the game up, you get to see just how much care and attention to detail went into this project as they reimagine all of these areas and characters from the ground up. The intro cutscene still gives me goosebumps from the masterful recreation of the opening OST and how you see Aerith completely brought to life. It starts to get my mind racing about how all of this will look for the entire trilogy, and I cannot help but get excited. There are some significant changes to the narrative, with some being welcomed and others being not so great, but the overall experience is worth it, and I would highly recommend diving into this if you have not already, starting from the easiest and ending with the hardest. This is a great introduction to how different the game is going to be from the original. This is not the type of game that you can get by on button mashing, and there is a level of strategy required to fight the bosses. If you're like me, it was kind of shocking the first time around, as I had played the original enough that I could play almost the entire game shutting my mind off and having little to no trouble, especially this boss. As they did with a lot of fights, they gave this guy several phases and ramped up the difficulty as the fight progressed. But what makes this fight so great is that it's a tutorial boss that is balanced just right to not be too hard for new players and not too easy if you've played something like this before. I also love how they expanded on the quips between your party members from the original to give you pointers on what to do next, but in a way that feels natural and not, hey player, do this video game thing, which completely breaks the fourth wall. Biggest thing to watch out for is its tail laser, as they will knock out one of your party if they get hit by it. So be sure to seek cover behind the obviously placed debris when this happens. Pay attention to the notifications above the boss on what it's doing next and guard accordingly, and you should have no issues taking away the win. A tier. One of the few bosses in the game that require to really think about what you're going to do next and focus on what mode the boss is currently in, alternating between magic and physical damage. It usually takes me a few minutes to adjust on a playthrough, but it has the right amount of difficulty that you can make a mistake without it costing you the fight, but it does punish for continuous mistakes. I think the most dangerous thing to watch out for is the piercing scream, as it incapacitates the party member who is inside the radius of the AoE. Make sure you're prepared to guard against heavy attacks and pay attention to the prompts if you are controlling your DPS character. This fight also has a new song that wasn't in the original, and it is pretty great. A tier. This fight is honestly more irritating than difficult. Between him always flying in the air and being out of reach, and when he is on the ground, his wheels on the chariot deflect your attacks. This fight just takes long for no reason. Aerith is the clear answer for which character to mainly use during the fight, but he has attacks that make it really annoying to try to damage him while blocking the incoming attacks. He reminds me a lot of enemies with shields in Elden Ring who are constantly turning around, so it's difficult to get on the other side of them to break their poise. No matter how many times I play this game, I have never felt like I've gotten good at dealing with this boss, which is disappointing because it comes right after a decent boss. C tier. The difficulty of this fight comes from starting it solo, which is the most dangerous part of the fight. Once your teammates join, he ramps up the level of attacks he uses on you, but very rarely are you in a situation where one of your teammates gets knocked out. The only move to be wary of is the fire column that lowers all of your character's HP to 1. He has enough of a cooldown after using it that you should be fine healing your party so he doesn't feel like it's too dangerous to me. He switches through the elements like Seymour Flux from Final Fantasy X, focusing on ice, fire, wind, and I think he does lightning as well, but I don't think he did it during this playthrough. Just guard when he's about to hit you with it, and remember that you can dodge out of the way for your Blizzaga and avoid damage entirely. He also has an overdrive limit break move at the end of the fight that I assume is an immediate game over, but it's incredibly easy to beat him before he uses it, so I wouldn't worry about it. This fight is where your best friend is going to be Counter Stance, which is the ability you get from the sword in Hojo's lab in the previous chapter. This is such an OP ability for humanoid fights as it lowers the amount of damage you take and it is not interruptible, so if you engage it right before you're about to get hit, you will succeed and not die. So I usually approach this fight by focusing on using Cloud and using the other two for support, unless I get lucky and I have Tifa as well, as she was built for high damage output on this playthrough. This is probably my favorite Sephiroth fight in any game so far. A tier. For some reason, I found this fight an absolute pain on this playthrough. I don't know what Reno did in between the last encounter and now, but I'll have whatever he's having. I did skip all the side content, so I wonder if I was under-leveled for what people normally experience in this fight. It is kind of odd, but the first half of the fight is significantly harder to deal with than when Rude officially joins the fight, even though the helicopter isn't even that dangerous. Maybe the AI evens out Reno's aggression when Rude is physically down there. Definitely continue taking out Reno first because he is far more able to KO one of your characters. Then it's smooth sailing after that. B tier. I absolutely love the build-up for this fight. They did an amazing job creating tension around a fight that was a complete pushover in the original game. I'm not sure how much your choices on what materials to mitigate affect the fight because I usually choose to eliminate the BBs, but that adds an extra layer of randomization to a fight that makes it unique to the others. This fight has a lot of things that can stun your party, so it's best to try to deal with the hands when they move away from the body, but it's not a death sentence if you choose to focus on the body. You should have elemental materia if you explored the previous chapter, so make sure you add lightning to one of your party's loadout to do extra damage with your weapon. I usually use Barret as he has high HP, and you'll need to use him in the third phase anyway because of the airbuster phases in and out of range. My strat is to use Barret to shoot him when he is out of range, and then switch to Cloud, who should have his ATB built up when he comes back to the bridge. The OST is like a 9-minute long epic, and they really cooked with this one. S tier. I feel really dumb because I didn't even realize that you're supposed to bait him into his own airstrike blast in the third phase. This is another one of those fights that I was figuring it out as I go because I just don't have a lot of memory of it. However, it does make me think of one of the improvements that Rebirth made, though that is much more noticeable going back into this game. When Cloud attacks something in the air, he consistently falls back to the ground after a hit or two. Yes, it makes sense because this isn't Kingdom Hearts, but it interrupts the flow of combat quite a bit, which wouldn't be as much of a problem in a normal fight, but you can't rely on just using Barret because the boss attacks non-stop, so you should switch frequently to keep them alive. This fight has my favorite OST of the game, hands down. A tier. This is by far my favorite fight in the game. I was so damn stuck on this fight in my hard playthrough, and it took me hours to beat it. Obviously, take out the barrier drones first and use Barret focus shot on the main gun when it's about to fire. Even if you don't, you can still hide behind the rubble or columns to avoid the attack. However, it will incapacitate a party member if you get caught by it. Phase 2 introduces charge attacks with wheels that have force fields on them. I would just ignore these and focus on the boss, to be honest. Other than that, it does more of the same attacks and adds a homing laser attack that you can avoid by hiding behind the columns. Your goal should be to have Barret and Aerith on opposite sides of the room so that you can switch to the other one when one is being focused on. Phase 3 introduces an overdrive type attack called a pulse cannon that will wipe whoever it hits. You have limited rubble to hide behind now, so it's best to save Barret's limit break until it cuts him off with a firewall and he's about to be KO'd. If he does get KO'd, that should charge his limit break fully and you'll be able to use it during the countdown. This is such a fun fight and rewarding once you got it down. S tier. I remember when I first played this game and thinking, why are we fighting Genova here? But the song also started and I also thought, that is an interesting change. The first phase is pretty unremarkable unless you continue to try to hit her back like my dumbass did. Avoid the tracking circle on the ground that casts stop on the character it catches, and you should trail into phase 2 with no problem. Well, Phase 2 has begun and the tempo of the song goes upbeat as the pressure is escalated. It's pretty great. The tentacles you have to beat before you can continue damaging her are a little annoying, but Phase 2 is pretty similar, except there are 2 tracking stop circles this time, which you should avoid. Then the third phase starts and I audibly yelled, "Yes!" the first time it called back to the original song. I feel like the Vince McMahon meme as the song continues to progress. This phase has a lot of DOT damage coming from everywhere, so you should make sure you use all of your characters and be wary of the very annoying rejection mechanic. A tier. Could it have been anything else, honestly? This fight is really tough on any difficulty and a true test of endurance on hard difficulty. This fight would be much more manageable if you didn't have to do it with only 2 party members. I usually have Aerith focus on the elemental weaknesses to pressure it and then have Cloud build up its stagger meter. But this game has a very obnoxious habit of going into another phase as soon as you're about to stagger the boss and resetting the bar. It makes sense, but feels like a major setback on subsequent playthroughs. This fight was designed to be a battle of attrition, and each phase adds more time in between your windows to pressure it, and even introducing invulnerability with the God House mode ability. It also does ridiculous damage and has an unmanageable amount of attacks to remember what the appropriate response is supposed to be. I absolutely hate this fight. F tier. Well, that is going to do it for my ranking of the Final Fantasy VII Remake bosses. I know I skipped Demon Souls, but that game pissed me off. I played Baldur's Gate 3 and finished that, so my plan is to review that game and then Final Fantasy X afterwards. See you in the next video.